Hey there, you guys. There's a topic I wanted to drop in with you about today, and that is around the idea of experience trumping or superseding dogma and theory. Nowadays, we're at a time in the information age where, regardless of your stance, what you believe in terms of diet, lifestyle, you can find information on both sides. Now, this is really problematic. This is difficult. It's a difficult time in the sense that we have all of this information at our fingertips, but it's also one of the most confusing times to be alive. It's very difficult to navigate health, very difficult to navigate what's actually happening, because there's so many questions in terms of research where we wonder, is this person being bought out? Who's funding the research? Are people's personal agendas and ideologies pushing their beliefs onto the population? It's hard to say. And there is no surefire technical answer by answering that. Some of our drives that we have, some of the ideas we push are just subconscious urges to make people like us. I do that. We all do that in some capacity. We want people to be like us and vice versa. We try to emulate things that we see. Now the point in this, and the gem in this process, and the thing that I guide my clients to when I work with them, is to trust your experience. Be very open to trying different things. Specifically in the context of diet, you've got to be very proactive in dialoguing with different styles of eating to really know if it has effect with your body. You also need to do blood work to see what your markers look like. When we look at diet, we see a lot of different ways to eat. We see veganism, we see vegetarianism, we see paleo, we see ketogenic, we see carnivore, we see macrobiotic. Now, there are fad diets that come and go, and then there are diets that are more long-term that can actually arguably be a long-lasting, sustainable approach to healthy living. But what I want to encourage you is this. What I have learned to trust has been my experience. I have tried many different diets, not because I love them, but because my body was not responding to various different ways of eating. And the things that had worked in the past, for those of you who don't know, I was vegan for 2 years in my 20s. And the first year and a half of that process, I did great. I lost a lot of weight, I felt very good, and then at the 1.5 year mark, I started to feel not great. Now during this time, I was working with a certified vegan nutritionist, someone who had spent 3 to 4 years with their degree learning how to really get all of the nutrients needed from a vegan diet. For whatever reason though, at the 1.5 year mark, regardless of the advice I was taking, and no matter how much I was adhering to the ideology, the theory, and the dogma that came with it, I just could not feel better. I also started to get very pale, and I also started to get incredibly skinny. And family members actually said, "You're looking too thin." And it was around that time that I switched and I began eating meat again. And the first time I had meat in a 1.5 years or 2 years, it was about that 2 year mark, my hands and feet, which had been cold for about 3 to 4 months, I had 3 bites of steak and my hands and feet started to get warm instantly. And I also felt this heat rise in my body that just felt amazing. And I realized, for what I was doing and how active I was, for my physiology and my genetic heritage, meat was actually a good thing. But I've had to navigate that. When I tried to go back to veganism in my early 30s, my body did not respond well. If anything, I actually put on weight, and I was following the same principles. So in the end, outside of how beautiful a theory can be, and no matter how much we want to adhere to it because on paper and because of research, sometimes that just doesn't work. And that's true with everything. It's not just diet. A martial art style. It says on paper that this is the best thing ever. Bruce Lee created Jeet Kune Do, which was the way of the intercepting fist, which was technically his whole thing was no style. He didn't want to adopt any of the stances of the other ones, but also borrowed some of them. And, in theory, technically, it's what he had sounded like the best. It was formless. You could do whatever you want. That doesn't mean it's going to speak to everyone, or that people train it, it's going to embody everything that they want or need. We have to explore and we have to trust our experience. And that's the thing that I encourage you guys to do. And if you are working, okay, with teachers or people who are guiding you towards health, and they tell you there's one way and you've got to do it this way, and if you don't do it this way, that you are going to get sick or that it's not going to work, I would advise you not to work with those people, because life isn't that narrow. There is no one diet that fits everybody, in the same way that every person's personality is different. There are no two people on this planet that are exactly the same. And we have to keep that in mind, and we have to give people room and ourselves room to explore things without saying, well, because I do it this way, I'm better and superior than you are. So, to share with you guys, currently, right now, I have shifted my diet in a completely new way. And I'm trying something completely different, and it definitely conflicts with some of what I have been taught. And as I hear those voices come up that, oh, I shouldn't be doing this because it conflicts with some of the things I have learned in the past, every time those voices come up, I essentially have to turn them off. Because in reality, what I'm seeing in my body, in my mental clarity, and in my energy, and in my weight is noticeable improvement. So I'm listening, and I'm testing it out. And realize that your body is incredibly resilient. Okay, our minds are incredibly resilient. We can test something out for 3, 6, 9 months, and it will likely, as long as we're in reasonably good health, it's not going to kill us. Give your body, give your mind time to explore these things. I can't tell you how many people I have worked with who have done some kind of work around spirituality, diet, exercise, who invariably get attached to someone who's incredibly dogmatic about how it should be because the theory states so. And sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. For me, that's never worked. Well, the theory is sound, therefore, we should adhere to it. It's not always the case. Yin-yang theory, which I totally subscribe to, it's a part of Chinese medicine, the whole theory of polarities. I think it's real and I think it exists. But there are lots of people who are going to go through life and never touch yin-yang theory, not even be aware of the idea, and they're going to get through life just fine. And they can live a long, healthy life, not having any theory under their belt. So even though I share this theory and I share these ideas with people, the overarching theme that I really want you to get is to trust your experience. Personal experience should be the leading light in your life, as opposed to just listening and adhering to theory and dogma just because it says so in a text or from some magical guru that says that they've got the answers. So I encourage all of you, let your experience guide you. Don't get stuck into the trap that because the theory on paper, because of scientists or because of whatever, is the way you should go. In the end, we have to find our own way. We have to carve our own path. We have to forge that steel, and we have to temper ourselves in the crucible of life through experience. So keep that in mind, you guys, as you navigate your health and your life. Thanks a bunch.